Right, so I'm gonna start. Welcome all. This is Real Estate Ically Speaking and More. And this episode is episode 16. And we're going to explore another very interesting topic. And as usual, this show seeks to educate you on various topics relevant to the real estate industry. We invite other professionals in the real estate business to share on topics that are common to the real estate industry as well. And I'd like to share a quote with you on this episode, and it goes like this: real estate is a key cost of physical retailers. That's why there's the old saying, location, location, location. Now, the topic, our topic for tonight is treating your property from pest infestation. That's treating your property from pest infestation. And we have a professional with us who is none other than Reverend Cosma Baker, who is a pest controller, and he owns the company Betakil Pest Control. And he's going to share with us, how we can get rid of these, real pesky and pests that tend to infiltrate our homes at times and infiltrate our businesses. So wherever they are, right? So with no further ado, I'll just go right into our question and answer segment with Reverend Baker. How long have you been a pest controller?
Well, firstly, I want to thank you for inviting me on the program. And I believe it's a wonderful program and quite insightful here. And, it's a joy to be here. Yes, I have been a pest controller for about 30, this year would be 38 years to be exact.
Wow.
Yes, 38 years.
That's a long time.
I tell you, it's a long time.
You have quite a lot to tell us tonight.
Well.
Is there a specialized training that one has to do to enter the field?
Yes, it is. To become a pestologist, one has to study for at least 5 years. And to study the habits of insects, what types of insects you're dealing with, and also their lifespan.
Wow.
The biological aspects, and the breeding aspects of insects, their habits, and where they live, how they invade your properties, whether home, business, it doesn't matter. And one of the things about insects, that insects, it's close to humanity. It's close to human beings in that if you don't see insects, if you don't have insects, if we were to eradicate all the insects, you'd eradicate human beings.
Wow.
So that's why we're called pest controllers. We can only control them. They're a part of the system of the world, the system of creation.
Indeed.
In fact, they were here before us.
And of course, I'm sure some of them are, have a purpose.
Oh
And
yes,
I quite
everyone.
understand the reason why you wouldn't want to eradicate them totally.
No, not
But
at all. I'll be
is
I'll
there
be out of a job.
okay? You're out of a job.
Yes, yes.
All right. It's just when they overtake your
Oh
space,
yes,
then that is
yes.
it. Why we have to kind of tone them down somewhat.
Of
All
course,
right.
of course.
So, is there a special school, or where do you get this specialized training?
This training can be had at the Pest Control Authority. They do have um, a training for those who would like to get into that field. It's a beautiful field to get into, and if you take it seriously, you can build a wonderful career out of it. And usually, people who get into pest control, most of them, it's a lifelong career for them.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Would you say this is a very lucrative business?
It is such a lucrative business that anywhere in the world you go, you can have a job because there will always be insects and pests just about every corner of the globe. So it's a very
And
lucrative business, wonderful business to get in.
it's the standards are basically the same in any jurisdiction, you would say?
It varies because of different countries, weather pattern, and all of that. For example, the tropical areas, we don't have snows. You find that they don't go into hibernation as much as like the colder states, in North America, Canada. They have a time when you won't have much insects because they go into hibernation or hide away
Oh,
during the winter season. But come spring, you're gonna have a problem on your hand because that's the breathing time for them and stuff like that. But in the tropical countries, they are with us almost 24/7.
all right. So, there you have it. All right. So, what is considered a pest, and what are the different types of pests you treat mainly?
Oh my goodness. It's like a kingdom. It's for the termites, it's over 2,000 species. For roaches, 2,000, about 2,000 species. However,
Wow.
there are three main termites from the termite family, because the termite family is from the ant family. The ant family is a wide family. And but for the termites that we treat, whether North America, Africa, or in the Caribbean or in Asia, it's the subterranean is one of the most destructive termites because the nest is usually underground. They live underground. That's where they set up their colony. Then they will come above, and sometimes they will put on wings, especially in the rainy season, and they fly above. And that's how they get into the roof. And they produce a saliva that helps them to not necessarily to cut through a lot of stuff, but they can worm their way through areas because of the saliva that they produce. They don't waste anything. They're very smart insects. They live the longevity for maybe 3 months or so, but they live in such a uh, concentrated and well organized way because you have in the subterranean termite colony, you'll have the queen. The queen is the only one that actually allowed to have eggs and reproduce. When the male, which she could just pick a male, and that male becomes a king. But when it mates with the queen, it dies a short while after. She stays fertile, for a long season, and she produces. They, as I said, they're very well organized, and they have the soldiers, the workers, and the cleaners, the ones who clean the nest, make sure that foreign matters stay away from the queen. They take care of that, and then you have the regular workers, and they do work on shift. The soldiers watch. So it's very, very interesting to study that the subterranean termites. The one that is a little unique is the drywood termites. The drywood termites is, as they say, drywood termites. It like dry places. So you'll find them indoors and you see little grains, but you will not see them. Half of the body looks like an ant and half like a termite. They don't put on wings as long as they're indoors. If they're going to migrate, that's when they put on their wings and they'll fly away. So we see them as rain ants, but they're really termites above ground. Then there's another
Are
one.
you
That
serious?
one is a yes. There's this one that eats out. Have you ever go to look at a property and you see some little white grains at the door?
Yes,
And
yes.
yes,
Right away, I know
it's
that there is termite.
yes, yes. That's what they call
That's a
chichi.
sign. Yes.
Or yeah, chichi is the little nickname that they call it, chichi. But
Mhm.
they're really drywood termites because they're like dry places. They can survive for a long time in dry places. They'll cut out, make it very hollow on the inside, but they make just a pin hole as they go in. But as long as they get in, they don't need to build a nest. So they eat, and what you see there is the droppings. So you actually see them eating. What the droppings tell you about the board that they're eating. So if you're not careful, you look like you might have a door, but really you can push your finger through the door because they would eat it out.
Yes,
The
I've seen
smart
those
thing,
signs.
yes, and one of the smart things about termites, even the subterranean, when they come above ground, they walk in small tube because they have also predators.
Mhm.
And they have a thing called laser. They developed the laser tank from the termites. They did an understudy of the termites in South Africa
Mhm.
under the white government, and they developed the laser tank because there's a laser termite that it cannot, let's say, it cannot manage a carpenter ant, which is much bigger, has heavier claws and stuff like that. It ties it up. It just they just gather. The soldiers will gather around. These are the termites now, and attack that ant or those ants, and wrap them in that laser, and they will just suffocate and die. So
Wow.
they yeah, so they developed the laser tank of the laser termites. Now, there's
Okay.
one more that is very popular in Jamaica, but you find that on the outdoors, which is we call tropical termites, and that's the one we call duck ants. They live
Mhm.
on trees. They make huge nests,
Mhm.
in trees, and
Mhm.
they're very bad for homes too. They get into your ceiling and they can do irreparable damage in the
Mhm.
roof
Mhm.
and
Yes.
so on, your cellars and all that. But they
Yeah.
have big trail about the size of your finger,
Mhm.
and if you break the trail, they patch it quickly. As quickly as you break the trail, they can patch it and continue to move on. And the
Wow.
termites are pretty much blind. They go by chemical, so they touch each other, and they transmit. That's how they communicate, by touching each other. But they are very
Mm.
smart. Yes, very
Wow.
very smart insects. Yes,
Wow. This is
yeah.
really a new university to me today.
Oh my goodness! Don't say that.
All right. So, how should property owners treat their investments for pets? For pests.
Oh yes, yes. It's such a wonderful question you asked there, Lady Karen, because insects, pests can really run down your property. I mean, of course, the land will be the land, but they can ruin a house. They can really ruin a house in a very short time if you do not take proper precaution. And there are times when you might not see a volume of insects, but if you allow them because of the rapidity of their breeding cycle, for example, let's look at something that bothers people a lot: rodents. A pair of mice can give you 350 in 1 year.
Mm,
Just one pair of mice can give
mm,
you 350. in 1 year.
My.
A teenager roach, during its lifetime, which is a very short lifetime, but she can give you uh, one in one capsule, just one of the little capsule. It holds 40 roaches, and 27 out of the 40 are females. So you can
Wow.
imagine when a bunch of them um, drop those eggs, and the teenager actually, which is called the Germanica Batilia germanica, that's the name for the teenage roaches. Now, the thing about teenagers, they can live in very cold places. So you'll find them sometimes in the strip of the door there, that rubber stuff. Sometimes when we are spraying, we have to pull the rubber, and you'll find them spray behind the rubber, and you find them dropping out. They can survive there. They can survive in
Wow.
your oven. They live in the
Wow.
oven. And then there are two types of the teenager. You have the black band in the back of the head. You'll see two black stripes. And then you have the brown one that has no stripes at all. One likes dry places and one likes damp places. So uh, the mother keeps the eggs for about, well, maybe about 2 to 3 days before actually dropping that egg. So she actually feeds the young ones. But if you were to step on it or break it, you'll see a milky substance. But they're real roaches being developed in those eggs. And when they're hatched, a little from the mother's body, a little chemical from the mother's body seeps into the eggs, and they become immune to the pesticide. So if you're using, let's say, for argument's sake, uh, an emulsion, and you kill the mother, the eggs are pretty much impenetrable for the chemical, but a little vein from the mother's body that connects the mother to the egg goes into the egg and introduce them, and they become immune. So many times people would say, oh, the pest controller comes and, we're having more roaches. The more he sprays it, the more. If he doesn't change the formula, so he will have to swing to an oil base that they're not used to, or a dry base that will actually sterilize the male and cause them not to impregnate the female. So you have to really study them to be on top of your game, because they are here to survive. They're here to stay.
But
Uh,
I find though that many pest controllers don't necessarily educate their clients as to what to expect. Like to say, for instance, what you say about treating for example, the teenager. You treat it this time, but
yes,
I find that they don't necessarily tell you that come the next 2 weeks or 6 weeks, we need to
yes,
come back because this is the reason why we need to come back. I
that's
find
right.
that the kind of information that you're giving me, I've dealt with some before and they don't know, they have never ever said why you need to, or they may just
Yeah.
say, I need to come back, but they have never ever explained it the way you did, so that,
Okay.
the science behind the whole thing. So thank you for
Yes.
that
It,
explanation.
it is indeed a pleasure, Lady Karen, and it's a such a powerful question that you've asked there. And just for the sake of the viewers and the listeners, um, the chemical, if it is mixed right, you'll get a good job initially. If you go back and use the same chemical, you're going to have a problem. So that follow-up that you had just mentioned is so key to to manage the pest, because in 6 weeks the little ones would come out not to not they have not reached the stage yet to actually reproduce. They don't start reproduce. However, if you can catch them within that time, and it is best to sweep up the eggs, and you can burn them, or you can get them in the garbage canister, get them away from the area. So
But
don't
won't
don't
they, if
leave
you
the.
if you take them elsewhere, won't they reproduce elsewhere? without you
Well,
killing them?
usually you put them in the garbage and they take them down to Riverton. They can always breathe up down there, to the to the dump. But you really don't want them anywhere near. So
Right,
sometimes they
okay.
spray and they leave the eggs, and the eggs have that um, ability now to hatch out, and you have 40 young ones to deal with among how many eggs that are there. And when that is done, they are immune to that chemical. So it is very difficult to they grow immune to the chemical. So it's good to go back with the follow up. Now, a lot of people, um, they don't see it necessary to do that because pest controller doesn't take time out to explain to them, tell them, listen, this is of paramount importance for us to come and have the property, do a follow up job on the property. Sometimes they don't do that. And when they do mention it, they don't explain to the client to let the client know the importance of it. So they just think that you want to just get a quick buck again from them. So that's where a problem
Right,
can.
right, right.
Now let me just
And
quickly
people,
say,
mhm.
yes, let me just quickly say, so that is for the teenager, and it's the hardest roach to handle because they become immune because of that. The other roaches, they pin their eggs with a saliva that like a cement and seal it to the wall and leave it there or any little place that they can hide it until they're hatched out. The red roach that we see, that pretty burgundy looking one that people hate, and I don't like that roach at all. It can fly up to 100 yards straight
Woo!
without,
Oh my
yes, a
God.
100 yards.
Mm.
Whenever it is going to rain, they will go to higher level or go into a safe place. They don't really want to invade your house because they invade your house for two things, for breeding purposes and for feeding. For breeding purposes and for feeding. They go into the cupboards where they can pin their eggs and they can go and eat. So but that roach usually comes up through. It's good to have mesh where the in the bathtub there and all that, a little mesh so that they can come up through that because they're larger roaches. But they are really they nest a lot in manholes. So if someone comes to the house to spray your house and around the house, it's important, very, very, very important to open up the manholes. You should walk with special tools to bring up the manhole, to open it up, and to spray inside of the manhole. And sometimes it's good to use a dry base chemical because when the water evaporates from the chemical, the crystals are there and it will take care of the job. And it can but because the manholes are very hot, it breaks down the chemical much quicker. So a powder-based form for the manhole, I recommend that strongly and highly.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. On an average, how long does a treatment last?
Because of the chemicals that we're using now, we have to be using more environmentally friendly chemical. And for aerosol that you will buy in the supermarket, they have taken out a lot of the active ingredients that the knockdown is there, but they remove the what word I'm searching for now. The There's a word that I'm searching for. It just won't come. But there was a time when the chemical would last for 6 months, but people were not comfortable with that because it was bothering the water table and certain plants like bananas and stuff like that. They were having some problems. So they changed all that kind of chemical like the chloridine, the dieldrin, and all of that. They changed that now to chemicals that last for pretty much about a month or 6 weeks or so. They don't give you something beyond that, especially when you're spraying indoor, is you don't want to flood homes with too much pesticides. You just want to make sure that you're treat it good, and you might have to do a quick follow-up, but after that, then you watch it to see how things are. But I would say 6 weeks, 2 months, the most for some chemicals. Termites, I'd say 5 years. Can do if the job is done scientifically the way it is supposed to be done, and professionally, you're looking at about 5 years. But they don't give you guarantee on the chemicals anymore. It used to be a lifetime, 75 years, but all of those they removed from the North American market, and now they put it in the third world. Now it's out of the third world. They don't make it anymore. So what they make now is environmentally friendly chemicals, and that pushes us well.
Okay. Would you recommend this profession to persons who may be considering a business option?
Oh yes, with oh yes. I mean, with 1,000 yeses, and but you have to have a love for
Passion.
it.
Uh-huh.
Yes, you have to have thank you. You have to have a passion and a real, love for this thing, because there are times when you go into areas where it's not so nice. You have to go into your cellar areas, and it's just not one insect. You might be spraying roaches, but you're spraying scorpions and centipedes and all kinds of, wasp, that sort of thing. So it is, but it's something to not just to put some chemical in a can and call yourself a pest controller. No, it takes time to learn it and learn it well, because you have to deal with children, and one has to take necessary precautions by dealing with by being observant. Nothing should pass you should to your eyes. Nothing you should take for granted. If there are toys in the way, take time out. Don't rush. Take time out. Go into the kitchen. You see flour base, all that kind of product. You take time out to help pack them away neatly. If it's not done properly, don't ever spray. It is better for you not to spray than to spray and contaminate. So it takes a lot of responsibility, because at the end of the day, you're using poison, and someone trusts you in their house or their property using poison to kill something, and they are not harmed in any way. So for doing that for almost 38 years, and no one has ever complained for that, I have to knock something. Help me knock something. But
All right.
but I'd surely recommend that for anyone who wants to make a career, a business out of that. It's fantastic.
Okay then. So with that said, that has put a lid on our discourse for tonight. And
Oh my
man,
goodness,
I
so
went
soon.
to the insect kingdom just a while ago.
Oh
I was
yes, yes.
visualizing the scorpion, I was visualizing the wasp, and it took me because I remember asking you about treating wasp at one
Yes,
time.
yes, yes,
Is that a part of the whole offering?
yes.
All right, just tell us about all the things that you offer, so that we
Yes.
can, have
Some
an
of the
idea.
things that I would recommend for the property, there are times when you do have an ant infestation. It has nothing to do with termites. It's just some little sugar ant, but they take over the place. And especially in the summertime, because they're building up, their instinct is to prepare for winter. And even though we don't have that harsh winter season system in our nation, at the same time, or in the Caribbean, they're wired for that. That's their instinct. They move things around, and they dig little holes and come up with dirt, and they're making mounds, and they're making all sort of things. It's good sometimes to recommend a yard spray, where you spray the trees, the yard, the crevices, the corner, and you do that with like a blower machine that can get into areas that a normal canister in your hand would not be effective in doing that. So you sometimes have to take a machine and go around the yard and spray the corners, spray the plants, because they're little white um, things on the God, there's a name for it, but they build up. Now, I want to say something to you, Lady Karen. Sometimes you have certain plants that attract ants, because the ants have a relationship by protecting them, and they eat the plant. The ants eat the droppings from those white flies or moth, and while they're killing the plants, the ants are feeding on them, so they build a correlation, a beautiful relationship with the ant, and so one protects the other. There are certain types of wasp, which you have mud wasps that build on the house, some little mud thing, but it can really become a little unsightly, so you want to make sure when you spray that, you scrape it off and so on. And the wasps now, they can be around the house. That's a little bit um, dangerous. I don't like wasps because a lot of people are allergic to wasp bite. It can actually
Yes,
kill you. Yes, it can
yes,
actually kill you.
yes. I had
And
my
when
I had my fair share of it
they're
recently,
here,
and man,
okay,
I am
yes, it
afraid.
can
I'm
be.
afraid to go back to the fruit tree.
Yes, I mean it can be deadly, and uh, bees too can, take up your house, but you don't want to kill bees because of what they do. But
Honey. Hmm.
most flying insects play a role in pollinating. Most flying insects do
Indeed.
play a role in pollinating,
Hmm.
but some can be destructive, and
Hmm.
so the job is sometimes you just clear up and spray up the yard and free up the thing, and you'll be all right. You're taking care of your property. Yes. Another thing I must say, developers should do what we call soil pre-treatment. So when they dig the foundation, they should call the pest controllers in and let us do the soil and the backfilling. So we have two stages. We have one, you put it down when they just, the soil, they cut the trenches. Then when they backfill, because they would have taken out some of the contaminated dirt to put back. So you do that. So you have two rounds to do. And that is most effective. When the building is gone up, you don't have to worry about going into drill and stuff like that, which is even more costly.
Wow, wow. And I said that was a, a whole study that you have just brought us through. And,
Thank you.
I am thankful and grateful, and I'm sure the viewers are grateful too for this discourse. And I'm going to ask them to just share, go back to it and listen again, because I mean, it's like I need to go back and listen to some of what you said, because, as I said,
Okay.
it's very useful information. And,
Yeah.
some of us, what you just told us a while ago, it's really an eye opener. And I want to thank you for coming
Yeah.
at such short notice.
Thank you.
And,
It's a pleasure.
right,
Could I
and
just say
really
one more
sharing it.
thing? Because a lot of people have rats
Mm-hmm,
coming in and,
mm-hmm.
and mice. And I did mention mice. Now, the poison that you use or the bait that you use for a larger rodent, it's not recommended to use the same thing for a mouse or for mice. Reason being, the mouse or the mice, they are inquisitive. So you hide it away nicely and they go find it, but you have to put it in small, smaller portions.
Pellets.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, pellets. For the rats, however, um, the bigger it is, the thing, because they are looking something also to file the teeth. If
Neighbor,
they don't
the
file the
neighbor.
teeth, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they cut your door, they will cut the roof. You'll hear them in the roof. They're filing their teeth. And
Wow.
if you touch the rat poison with your hand, they can be bait shy for up to 21 days. Don't eat it. And you said, oh, but the rat poison is not good. It's because they have a very strong sense of smell. They have very poor eyesight. So if you're not careful, you can actually damage things in your house trying to kill a rat. All you have to do is to move the things if you can quickly from the corners, because the whiskers tells it that it's at a safe place. So it runs to the corners, the whiskers brush on the wall, and it tells it, I'm at a good place. So that's a little tip how to deal with rats. So if you want to physically attack them, you have to move things across. They hardly can see you, and then you can actually hit them. But they're very good with listening, hearing, and they're very good with smell. But their sight is very, very poor.
Okay. Thanks again. So there you
Welcome.
have it, listeners, viewers. Please share, subscribe, like, and please call Reverend Baker for your pest control needs, and he'll be happy to help you. Thanks
Thank you very
again.
much.
And have a
Thanks for
good
having
night
me on
to
the
all,
program.
a good
And good
weekend.
night to you too. God bless you.
Bless you.
Okay.